I'm a hairstylist. I started off as a barber.
You are a male stylist in what is traditionally a female dominated industry.
Yeah.
How do you kind of manage people's perceptions?
Perception is something you just can't manage. Just where we are today, the system is just completely different.
Stages in your career where you haven't had employees, what do you think is the if you could, control your setup, no charge, and do exactly what you wanted to do in this space, what would be the best kind of format for you? Welcome to Fight Talk. My name is Christian Young. Welcome to Fight Talk. My name is Christian Young. Beauty in the business. Today, we're going to talk with a hairstylist and really understand the method behind his madness. I think that this episode is going to be really interesting because we delve into what it takes to really be a hairstylist and also talk about some of the challenges of being a male in a female-dominated industry. We'll talk about some of the misconceptions people have had, some of the issues that have cropped up with clients, and then we'll also discuss the feeling of community that sometimes happens when you're getting your hair done. We look forward to you joining us today as we really dive into the behind-the-scenes world of beauty. Hello. Today, we are going to be talking about the business of beauty. And today I have the CEO of Stark Beauty with me, Dedric Deshon. Hi, Dedric.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your business?
My business has, I've been doing it for about 20 years. I'm a hairstylist. I started off as a barber around the age of 13 and fell in love with shears, and then I fell in love with hair color. So I stuck with it and I just kept going and going, getting better and better, and here I am.
So you have been doing this for a long time, and probably when you first started, I'm assuming that you didn't originally have an LLC.
No, I did not.
So what kind of sparked your interest in really forming Stark Beauty and starting down the path of, running a full-scale business?
I knew eventually it had to go from being what we considered a hustle, a way of living. Eventually, how do I start to streamline this? How do I keep up with my numbers? How is this going to make sense? Because we're in a business that back in the 90s, it was mostly just cash. Mm-hmm. There was no credit card. People weren't paying for services like that. It was always cash. And if you were not in a commission system to where the business ran that for you and gave you a 1099, then you didn't really have any way of tracking. So I tried an LLC before years ago, didn't know anything about it. That dissolved on me because I didn't have the education to really keep it going. But I knew if I'm going to start to see this and see growth or start to be looked at as a real business, I've got to form an LLC. And even before that, when trying to buy property or trying to buy a car or trying to buy anything of real value, you don't have anything to show for it, like besides your check stubs. Like, why should someone trust you? So that's in a nutshell what led me to know that I need to put this in some type of order. And I know I needed to start a business. I didn't know which way to go. There's so many different corporations, right? But after talking with some people who were in the business, they said LLC is probably where you want to start.
So when you first started out, one of the things that we talk about a lot on this show with a lot of different entrepreneurs is one of the biggest challenges that they had was structuring their books and records, making sure that, at the end of the day, they had some sort of financial statements that they could show for their business. Mm-hmm. How was that process for you?
It's helped a lot with the LLC. And then I teamed up with some people from Bank of America. And I already had QuickBooks in place. So it was really about putting things in the right place so I can track it, so I can have a statement to show what the business was doing. So that helps me a lot. Just having the QuickBooks, having the ADP payroll system, paying yourself underneath your own umbrella really has helped a lot.
And how do you manage inventory? Because this is one of those businesses where, you're a hairstylist, you have a beauty business. You have to have product. You have to have, tools, things like that. How do you manage that process?
Well, you definitely have to have tools. Without those, you're definitely in trouble. How do you manage it? Now, from an inventory standpoint, I don't have products as I sell yet, but I do have certain items that I sell to clients. So I try and track them, just seeing what moves and what's not moving. My bag bar is not super extensive. It's not super hard for me to manage because it's just me right now. But when I worked with staff before, that was something that the assistant took on. So that for me is basic bookkeeping. I just that's still a little old fashioned. Just moving into the systems, but right now, most of that I keep stored just in my little booklet.
Speaking of old fashioned, I recall, when I used to think about hairstylists, everybody had, they would have their license posted on the wall and they had to take their continuing beauty education classes. But now when you look at the industry and just the breadth of people who are doing hair, who might have learned not necessarily in the most traditional sense, how do you manage, kind of keeping up with all of the things?
Well, it's like 5 questions in one right there. Just where we are today, the system is just completely different. Like you say, you used to have license posted. You don't really have to have them posted anymore. You don't necessarily have to have your CEUs anymore. The leniency of like how Springfield looks at stylists now, if you're not underneath a commission umbrella, then they're kind of making it easier for anybody to get in and stay in and just do whatever they want to do. There's a lot of stylists with the growth of social media and things like that. Some educators, they're not licensed educators, and let alone they're not even licensed hairstylists. So they're able to just work. They can start an LLC. I don't think they have to prove that they're licensed to be a company anymore. So it's just different. It's just real different. I don't know if I answered all the questions that you just loaded.
Well, how do you manage? I did load a lot of questions in there. So how do you manage the kind of the shifting of the trends, because I think for a long time, everybody was like, especially if you're dealing with women of color, you're initially, when I was growing up, everybody had relaxers.
Yeah.
And then, it shifted into natural hair, shifted over to, hair assistance, as I call it, or weaves and protective styles and things like that. Like, how do you keep up with all of those trends?
Well, I kind of navigated through all those trends throughout my career. Like I said, I started out a barber. Before the systems and units had became out, I was the lead stylist for hair club for men and women for the Women's Center in Oak Brook. So I did that for a couple of years. I've always loved color, so I'm always studying color, new techniques, new products, and things like that. So it's because I love it. I think I've been able to kind of ride that wave. Now, I don't really adjust when it comes to what's trendy right now and things like that. Typically, most artists, we see something, we learn it, we know how to do it. It's not, I got to go take a class for every little thing that comes out. It's already something that we're already doing. Most of the things have been just renamed. It's the same thing. It's given a new name, like the silk
Genie
press.
Curl.
Like Genie Curl, Jerry Curl. I don't know. Maybe they were together. Silk press. It was getting your hair shampooed and blow dried and styled. Now it's just give it a name. So none of the stuff is really new. It's just it's maybe remixed or given another name or it's brought back. So I've been all right with adjusting to trends. I don't adjust for things that I don't like to do. If I don't love to do it, if I don't think I'm great at it, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit because we were talking about man units
Oh yeah.
and this growing trend of, men getting into the protective styling game and those types of things. And you were saying that you had done that years and years ago before, everyone found out about it on social media.
Years ago, and it was a thing that it was super cliche. You had a handful of men in Chicago who might have wore them due to their jobs. So I had an anchor man who worked for the news, and I've had certain clients. It fit that type. It wasn't an everyday thing. It wasn't for just anybody. So it's interesting to see it come from behind the cameras of Hollywood. It was really it was created for movie sets, and it was created for clients with alopecia, like mostly totalis, or clients who were coming back from cancer or going through cancer. That's kind of where it started, and then it became this mainstream thing, like most music video genres do as well. So, yeah, that can go. When I hear protective styles, my brain goes all off over here. I'm like, nope, don't go there. Stay here.
So how do you manage, advertising?
Most of my clients are my billboards. Like that's most of my advertising. Honestly, I'll post here and there on social media. I'm not as great as I should be, I know, but I've been doing it for so long. Most of my advertising comes from people just knowing who I am. I met someone the other day that I didn't know, but she knew me. She's like, Dedric Deshon? I was like, yeah. Thought I was going to be served. And she was like, no, I know you're a hairstylist. You did my cousin back in blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, let me know how old I am. That's most of my advertising, my clients.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Speaking of clients, how do you deal with clients that are difficult?
I don't really get a lot of difficult clients anymore, and it might be where I am in my career. If we don't mesh, then I will recommend you to someone else. But I don't really get that. I don't really have difficult clients. All of my clients are pretty fun, and I'm flexible and pliable around clients that need certain attention more than others. So I really haven't had that issue, thank God. I have had them in the past, and there were when I look back at it, they turned out to be clients that I stretched out and did super extra work for, and it worked against me. And I was trying to figure out what that was. Maybe I was giving too much to the wrong people, so I stopped. I think I became more selective of who deserved this treatment and who didn't.
So when you think about, your career, because you've been in salons with multiple people, you've, had employees, some stages in your career where you haven't had employees. What do you think is the if you could, control your setup, no charge, and do exactly what you wanted to do in this space, what would be the best kind of format for you, for your business?
Oh God. That just brings me back to one of the first salons I ever worked at. If it was up to me and I can control the environment and cost didn't matter, then I would probably have a salon. And it would be a commission-based salon. That way I can kind of control the energy of what's going on, the products that we're using, what's happening from front to back, the front desk with bookings, me not having to take pictures and video and later for social media. It just takes me back to salon heaven, where I used to work. First salon I worked in that ran like that, and it was healthy hair, multicultural, great products. Everybody got along. Everybody worked with each other. Nobody fell behind. It was just a great atmosphere. And it's really hard to find that these days. And that's why I'm in a suite. Because it's really hard to find a group of people to work together who genuinely care about each other when they're not in the salon as well.
What do you think the toughest part about being in the business of beauty is?
Toughest part, I guess it hasn't been for me, but I think the toughest part is stylists not being stuck in the mindset of I'm an artist. Like, no, you're an artist, but you're also a business. And if you need to run yourself like a business, like you work for yourself. You're like, oh, you work for yourself? Oh, you could take days off, or you could come in when you want to. You could be late, or you could, like, no, you can't do those things. Like, you're working for yourself. So it's just as important as you would be working for somebody else. So I think I've handled that pretty well. I love what I do. I respect my clients. I respect their time. And that alone, just by itself, has kept me pretty stable in the business.
How have you managed balance? You have an additional business. You also have a junior person that you're responsible for. How do you manage all of that and create balance?
Oh, man. How do you create balance? Well, I think it's back to earlier. Having a routine helps with the balance. Trying to give yourself a dedicated off day or two. Trying to take a vacation every 3 months is reasonable. I'm sure we would like to go once a month. But I think for me, it's a balancing act. I don't think there's a way to fully control it because things happen, things change all the time. But trying to stick to some type of grounded routine and staying on top of everything. Like you said, my junior, the other business, giving those things dedicated time and space is what helps keep the balance.
So one of the things that I have always found interesting about you is that you are a male stylist in what is traditionally a female-dominated industry.
Yeah.
How do you kind of manage people's perceptions, misperceptions, all those things, and still kind of stay true to what you love?
Well, yeah, it's many layers to that. Like for as long as I can remember, the African American male hairstylist has always been portrayed as a homosexual stylist, a homosexual person. As far as managing perception, sometimes I've had fun with it. Yeah, like you have your perception until you ask the question. I guess you'll never know. So perception is something you just can't manage. It's the idea of someone else looking at you. So if you want to know, ask.
Okay. I mean, I think that you can only respect that as there are a lot of perceptions that people have about different industries and entrepreneurship. Only women can do these things. Only men can do these things.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I know a lot of men who are in the nail business and, in fashion and all these other things. And there's always this kind of thought around how people should move in different industries. So I always find it interesting, especially talking with entrepreneurs, to understand how they move in what would be technically considered a non-traditional industry.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's similar to like female mechanics where they're like, oh, well, you shouldn't be here, little lady. And you're like,
exactly.
Okay, but I can fix your car. Right. I can do these things. Like, I don't see why there should be a barrier to entry there. So that's why I think it's important for, our listeners to understand that there really is no barrier to entry when it comes to concepts of gender within different industries.
Yeah.
As, it's about, can the work be done?
Yes.
And so I wanted to make sure to, like get your thoughts on that, because you are sitting in an industry where everyone would expect for you to be a lady or,
Oh, yeah.
or someone who is, with a member of the LGBTQ community. So I think that understanding that is a full breadth of people who can do a job, and it's not based on what they look like is critically important in my mind, especially when you're thinking about entrepreneurship, because we're already kind of something that's outside of what would technically be considered the norm, because there's still people who, think that we all just take cash and hope for the best.
Yes.
And so I wanted, I think that it's important to make sure that folks know that we can have books and records and, official businesses, and it's not all, run out of our kitchen or, the back of the house or things like that. And when you think about it more holistically, most businesses started out as small. Yeah. Actually, all businesses started out as small, because you have to start somewhere.
Yes.
So,
like you said, you have to have business in place to scale.
Exactly.
Other than that, you're just blowing in the wind.
Exactly. So when you think about scaling, I know at one point you talked about, the fact that you're kind of getting into product development and some of those other areas. What has been the most challenging when you think about concepts of scaling for you?
Well, from a product standpoint, I would say the most challenging has been getting the right, chemistry, the right components of how things are going to go. And now it's getting a little tougher because the world that we're in is making it a little bit harder to get products from different places at the prices you would have before, and certain ingredients are changing hands. So that has been the hardest thing, working on the first product that I'm working on right now. And another barrier has been thinking that you can talk to someone who has products or who has some things going already, and thinking that you can lean on them for advice when they look at you as competition. And they don't want to give you the advice. They don't want to help. They'll do all these seminars and talks somewhere else, like, I'm here for you, I'm gonna. But when you actually come to them for help, like real help, they don't have the time, or they don't want to share with you what they've had to, whatever grit and sweat that they had to work through to get the knowledge that they have. They don't want to share it with you. They want you to go through the same alleys and fall on the same street, and they want you to break a nail and everything like they did, which is not typically how it goes. For me, it's not how I would do it. If I know something, somebody wants to learn it, I give it all to them. And that's a challenge. But I'm working around it. I've got a few chemists that I'm working with, a few people to help out. It takes time to get it right.
So you are starting to feel the impact of the tariff situation that's happening, and kind of all of the additional troubles that people are having with importing and exporting out of different environments.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just starting, so I can't imagine people who already have companies up and going. When you're looking from something where you were putting an output of 10,000, now you just automatically overnight you're at 15, 20,000 to create the same thing. And then who's going to take the brunt of that? And typically it's the consumer and the supplier. Okay. So it's interesting to see where we're going with that, but we'll see. All we can do is keep pushing.
And then one last question. If you could give advice to people who are starting out within their own beauty businesses, what would you tell
them? What I would tell them is really stick to your niche. What is it about that business or about that particular concept that you really love the most, and stick with that. That would be my biggest advice. Take a chance. Put yourself in situations that are going to make you uncomfortable, because that typically makes you better. Don't follow someone who isn't trying to lead you to like a higher ground. That would be my biggest advice. And treat it like a business. Don't come into this thinking it's a hobby. We stand up on our feet for 12, 14 hours a day sometimes. Well, most days. It's not as easy as it looks, but it is very fulfilling. So that's what I would say. I would say get a mentor, especially coming out. Get someone that you look up to, that you really you really adore. They really aspire you, because that's going to fuel you and keep you going, and not thinking about how much money you can make, because the money's going to come, especially if you really find something that you really love and you're really passionate about it. So that will be some of the advice I would give to new stylists.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us today. Now, can you tell the people where they can find you on socials?
You can find me on socials. I'm under Stark Beauty Concepts, but mostly you'll find me right now under Dedric Deshon Hair.
Thank you.
On IG and Facebook.
Thank you.